Okay, I've got to talk to you about this video I recently saw. It's from the group NowThis, which is a media group with a pretty leftist slant. And I want to go through this video and respond to several of the quotes I heard. And if you want to see it before we get started or anything like that, you can always go to my sources section and see it there. So the video starts out, and it's focusing on hunters and gun supporters who support gun control. And the first guy we see, right off the bat, he says, "I don't believe the propaganda of the NRA." And so immediately I'm thinking, but he's fine being used for what could be seen as a propaganda video for the leftist organization NowThis. He then says, "Nobody is after my tools that I use and I enjoy to go hunting with. Except former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens wrote in the New York Times, we need to repeal the Second Amendment." Karen Carter Peterson, who is the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, signaled her support for John Paul Stevens' view. She did it on her Twitter page. So you can, as I said, you can go see that on my sources section. So the video goes on, and the guy says, nobody is talking about banning shotguns or hunting rifles. They're talking about banning military guns. Well, the AR-15, which is definitely what this guy is referring to, it's a popular rifle for hunting hogs in Texas. So this guy is inadvertently supporting the ban of a hunting rifle. By the way, the most common type of firearm used for gun crime is an illegally obtained handgun. This argument never gets, I hear it all the time. He says, my kids need to get through hours and hours of training to drive a car. Yet nobody needs training to buy these assault guns. That's because the right to bear arms is a right listed in the Bill of Rights. You have the right given by nature's God to self-defense. Driving a car does not fall into the category of rights. The video then shifts to a woman who says that she's shot an M16 before. She says, quote, "The force of the trigger is so powerful that I can't even imagine facing a human with that machine." Fully automatic rifles, like the M16, are heavily regulated by the ATF. And if she's worried about using a civilian model, which would just be semi-automatic, if she's worried about using that against a human, she might think differently if a large group of rioters or gang members were trying to break down her door. So now this brings in a third person, another hunter. And the guy says things like bump stocks and high-capacity magazines and AR-15s. He says, I don't need these, and I don't think anyone does. Well, there are people who don't think you need your 30-06 or your 308 or whatever you're hunting with. So do we need to just outlaw your hunting rifles because someone else doesn't think you need it? He then says Wayne LaPierre of the NRA doesn't speak for him or for hunters. But you don't speak for the hunters that share the same views as Wayne LaPierre. And the last time I checked, the NRA claims a membership of around 5 million people. So at least LaPierre is speaking for a few somebodies. The video then goes to a reporter. He does a lightning round of questions with the first guy they interviewed. And here's how it went with the first guy's responses. Do you support universal background checks? Yes. Do you support banning assault weapons? Yes. Do you support banning high-capacity magazines? Absolutely. Do you support licensing or gun licensing? Yes. Do you support gun training? Yes. Do you support having a registry of guns? Absolutely. So I'm thinking this is fun. This lightning round game, I want to play. So I'm going to ask myself the questions and we're going to see what I'm going to say. So here we go. Do you support universal background checks? No. Do you support banning assault weapons? No. Do you support banning high-capacity magazines? Absolutely not. Do you support gun licensing? No. Do you support gun training? Yes, but not as a mandatory requirement to owning a gun. Do you support having a registry of guns? Absolutely not. Wasn't that fun? So now the first guy says, people need to come at gun control with the mindset you don't want to ban all guns. Okay, but progressives, they do things in steps. Where does gun control stop? Because once AR-15s and high-capacity magazines are banned, people will still die from firearms, and progressives will just find something else they want to ban. Next, they go to the second person they interviewed. She comes back on and she says, look, the Second Amendment is part of our Constitution, and that's fine. It's the groundwork for this country, and that's okay. But there's a limit to every law, you know. We cannot have assault rifles on the streets. Okay, you're right. You have the right to free speech, but you can't send the president an email that says, I'm going to kill you. The limit to the Second Amendment is you can't take your gun and kill innocent people. And as far as what she says about we shouldn't have assault rifles on the streets, there are literally millions and millions of AR-15s in civilian hands. So why do you want to penalize every single one of them just because one person decides to kill an innocent person with one? The proper response should be penalizing the person who broke the law. Finally, the third person they interviewed, he says on tape, he contacts his senators. Well, you know what? I encourage you to contact your senators too. And not just your senators, but your congressmen. And tell them not to penalize law-abiding citizens because of those who break the law. Gun control is not the answer. And I'm covering this video because NowThis is obviously in favor of gun control. They're out in full force. And the last time I checked this video, it had amassed over 12 million views. So we who do not support gun control must keep up the fight. You have to be active in combating gun control efforts. Call your legislators. Donate to a pro-gun group like Gun Owners of America or the NRA. Share videos that point out pro-gun arguments. Don't vote for politicians who will not uphold the Second Amendment. We have to do what we can to protect our Second Amendment rights. Because after that shooting in Parkland, the gun control crowd and the media, they are clawing over this opportunity to restrict your gun rights. And they're not just coming after your guns by way of an assault weapons ban. Some of them are literally calling for a repeal of your right to defend yourself with arms. And this is serious. This is serious because it's the Constitution we're talking about. We can't let the gun control advocates control the conversation. We have to push back against whoever is pushing the gun control agenda. Be it hunters at the March for Our Lives, be it high school students, or be it the same old media outlets that push gun control like NowThis. By the way, I just wanted to say that donations to the NRA have tripled since the Parkland shooting. We need to keep up that trend. Guys, I'm Rich Carroll. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.